There was no explosion, no troops crossed a border, no shot was fired, and yet, deep underground, hundreds of machines began to tear themselves apart. The weapon that did it was not a bomb or a missile. It was a few hundred kilobytes of computer code. This is the story of how war quietly moved off the battlefield and into the network that now runs almost everything you depend on. For thousands of years, war meant physical force, soldiers, ships, steel. But over the last few decades, the world rebuilt itself on top of a single fragile thing, the computer network. Power grids, banks, hospitals, water plants, pipelines, elections, all of it now runs on software connected to the internet. And anything connected can, in theory, be reached. That is the core idea of cyber warfare. You don't destroy your enemy's machines with explosives. You take control of them with code. The attacker might be on the other side of the planet. They leave no fingerprints, no uniform, often no proof of who they even are. For years, cyber warfare was just a theory. Then, around 2010, the world saw what it could really do. Iran's nuclear program depended on thousands of spinning centrifuges, hidden in a heavily guarded underground site. A piece of malware, later named Stuxnet, found its way into those isolated systems. It was extraordinarily sophisticated. Stuxnet did something no virus had done before. It quietly took over the machines controlling the centrifuges, spun them to destructive speeds, and at the same time told the operators that everything was completely normal. By the time anyone understood what was happening, a large share of those centrifuges had been wrecked. A physical facility had been sabotaged, without a single soldier setting foot inside. It was a turning point. Stuxnet proved that lines of code could cross from the digital world into the physical one and break real machines. The next lesson came not from a secret lab, but from an entire country. In 2007, Estonia, one of the most digitally connected nations on Earth, was hit by a wave of attacks that knocked banks, government sites, and news outlets offline for days. A few years later, the world watched something even more alarming. In the middle of winter, a power grid was switched off remotely, cutting electricity to hundreds of thousands of people. The attackers had reached deep into the control systems of the grid itself, opened the breakers, and plunged whole regions into cold and darkness. Suddenly, the danger was not abstract. A keyboard, in the right hands, could now do what once required an air force. This is what makes cyber warfare so different from everything before it. A traditional weapon is visible. You can count tanks, track missiles, watch armies move. A cyber weapon is invisible until the moment it strikes, and sometimes you never even learn who launched it. Nations now build entire military commands devoted to this fight, with thousands of specialists on both attack and defense. They probe each other's networks constantly, quietly mapping the systems they might one day need to shut down. Much of this happens in peacetime, in silence, with no public announcement at all. And here is the uncomfortable part. In this kind of war, the front line runs straight through ordinary life. A pipeline that carries fuel, a hospital that stores patient records, a bank that holds savings, a factory, a water treatment plant. When one of these is hit, it isn't soldiers who feel it first, it's civilians, often far from any traditional conflict. A single ransomware attack can freeze a fuel network and trigger panic across an entire region. That blurring of war and daily life is exactly why governments now treat cyberspace as a domain of conflict, right alongside land, sea, air, and space. So when people ask whether cyber war is coming, they're asking the wrong question. It isn't coming. In a quiet, constant, low-level form, it is already here, playing out every single day in systems most of us never see. The weapons are code, the battlefield is the network, and the targets are the same machines that keep modern life running. War didn't disappear, It just became invisible. But before the world fought wars made of code, there was one conflict that first showed everyone how technology would dominate the modern battlefield, fought in the desert, in just 100 hours. That's the next story.